Welcome to Bump Set Chat, the podcast where volleyball professionals come on and share their stories, experiences, and advice. Today, from Team USA, Long Beach State, Mason Briggs. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Happy you're able to hop on and really appreciate you taking the time. So you ready to go?
Yep, let's do it.
All right. So the way we start things off is we do 3 random questions. So let's get into it. Most interesting place you've ever played a volleyball match in?
Ooh. Oh, that's a good one. Interesting place. I would say, actually, okay, I'm glad it came to me. I would say Costa Rica when we went for the, what was that, youth national team, NORCECA tournament. Yeah. I'm going to say interesting just because it was my first international experience, and it was obviously I've been told stories of the groups that had gone before us, and some people are, there's no cold, or there's only cold water, there's no hot water, there's you're sharing a bed with multiple people. Interesting stories like that, right? And I was like, oh, okay, you guys are over exaggerating. And I didn't have a interesting story in that way, but more so we showed up and there's just like birds flying around in the arena.
In the arena?
Yeah, in the arena. And it was interesting in that sense. It was also interesting because, and I always talk about like volleyball needs to have this type of energy, but we were there and there's like during the matches, blow horns and these little trumpets and stuff. So interesting in that way. And also interesting in the sense of like, I was wearing a white shirt and at the end it was like orange or something. And I was like, okay. It was just a little different environment, but obviously amazing experience.
Nice. So almost like a football stadium or soccer stadium atmosphere with just, like you said, the horns and things like that.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I think it was, we were playing Cuba that match that was like really hyped up.
Yeah.
They had their horns and it was pretty cool. Exactly. More like for us Americans, the only comparison would be like a soccer match.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Second question. How would you rate a Luke Combs concert?
Gosh, great question. You did your research, maybe. How would I rate it? Holy moly. 11 out of 10.
Yeah.
I just went, was it last week or the week before? And it was unreal. We were super close. We were this close to him. And that was an amazing experience. I always say, and it was funny, I was actually just talking to Matt about it, Matt Anderson, because we were walking out together at the gym today. And he had gone to a concert, I think earlier in the summer, knew that I was going to this one. And I asked, like, have you ever heard him live? And that's always what I ask people is like, have you ever heard him live? And he's unreal live.
Good engagement with the crowd too.
Yeah. Oh, really nice. Good engagement with the crowd. And he brings his band up and he lets his band play like solos and stuff. And each person in his group, I think, sang their own song. It was really cool. Oh, nice. And the openings for the concert were awesome as well, which made it like the full experience.
Nice. Now, what would you say your sort of music style is? Is, sort of everything or a country boy?
More country.
Yeah.
I blame it on, like, I've actually never been like crazy into music. I was never the type of guy that was making playlists or the one that's on aux all the time. But I kind of got not forced into it, but just it stuck. I got, I liked it.
Yeah.
I didn't like it before, but started liking it, started listening to it, and it kind of stuck for me. I had never really explored a lot of other music. I was fine listening to a lot of it. The only thing I can't stand is just like all the stuff with bad language in it and like that sort of music. But I like most of the message in country.
Yeah, excellent.
the good ones. Also, I think just more my pace.
Yeah.
Like the
laid back.
Homey, good vibes. Like,
nice. Sort of all right, final question. Favorite home cooked meal?
Ooh.
Like when you go to, so next year when you go to Paris or Nice and you come home for that first time, what is that request? You're going to say, Mom, you got to make this for me.
Yeah, shout out to my mom. She is like a master chef. That's why it's always so hard to pick, is it doesn't matter. It's anything and everything that she makes. But they got a smoker a few years back, and I'm going to guess, the way you kind of set the stage for the question, that I'm going to be missing some sort of barbecue or maybe when I'm coming back home. So I'm going to go with like a baked beans, maybe barbecue ribs and like some potatoes,
Nice.
something like that. Yeah.
Are you sure you're not from the South? You got the country music, the barbecue, the baked beans.
I love barbecue.
Excellent.
Maybe I am.
All right, so let's jump into this. So first of all, how was your final college season?
Well, it was great. I'll start off by saying we made it back to the NCAA championship and had another great run. It was my third Final Four that I've
Wow.
been to, and that saying that and looking back on that is actually unreal.
Yeah.
Coach Knipe, he put it in a really good way at our end of the year banquet. We had kind of all of the trophies displayed, and we didn't win a championship my time there, which is pretty sad. Still hurts, but
Yeah.
we made it to 3 Final Fours. So we had 2 second place trophies and a third place trophy. And I'm pretty sure, don't quote me, but 3 times we won the Big West Conference. And once we won this past year, the Big West tournament.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, obviously there's still some success there. Didn't reach the ultimate
Absolutely.
goal of winning a national championship, but overall success. And I was actually just speaking to this, just walking away with the experiences and the memories and the growth
Yeah.
that I had as a player and a person. Obviously that was one of the big reasons I chose Long Beach and knew that that's the decision that you're making when you're going to college. Is you're not only going to, play volleyball and do all that, but you're making decisions about, who you're going to become and the man that you're going to be and the people you're going to be around and all of that. So
Yeah.
looking back on it in that sense, I could probably talk for a long time about all of it, but kind of just condensing it down into all that, I always just bring it back to gratitude of,
Yeah.
the success, but also just everything that came with it. It was pretty awesome.
Nice. All right. And now where are you from?
I'm from Valencia,
Mm-hmm.
California. It's Santa Clarita. I always, the joke growing up was actually like, I would say, oh, I'm from Valencia. I'd say, what? Oh, it's Santa Clarita. And then I would say, I'm from Six Flags Magic Mountain. And people are like, oh, okay. And so
Okay.
that's, depending on where the person is that I'm talking to,
Yeah.
sometimes I'll just say Six Flags. But Valencia, California, about an hour, like I was saying, an hour and a half from Long Beach
Yeah.
area. And same with Anaheim, which is where we train now with USA.
Okay. Nice.
It, and a good location.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, when did you first discover volleyball?
Great question. It's always funny because the answer to like when did you start playing volleyball, I always just say 0.
Yeah.
Apparently, my parents were tossing me volleyballs when I was 2, or as soon as I could walk.
Yeah.
Uh, who knows if it was making it back to them? But uh, I started playing club when I was 10, and I grew up around volleyball. So
Mm-hmm.
my 3 older cousins played at UCLA.
Okay.
Um, yeah, Walt Kerr is my uncle. For those that might know, like uh, their name in the volleyball world, he had 3. My mom's sister, um, and Walt had 3 kids, and Jamie, Kevin, and Tony Kerr, and they all played at UCLA. So I grew up going to UCLA games and cheering for UCLA. Add some,
Mm-hmm.
interesting
Yes.
to the story, right? And anyways, I grew up watching them even in high school, and then them in college, and then my 2 older brothers also played, one at Vanguard, the oldest one at Long Beach,
Yeah.
and so I've been around it forever. And my
Okay.
parents coached and played, and played for what it was back then,
Yeah.
uh, and I've been around it forever.
Excellent. And now, where does boys indoor volleyball rank in the hierarchy? Like, did you say you started club at 10? Was there any volleyball for boys in middle school as well, or really club was the only path at that age?
Yeah, that's that's kind of why I always give my uncle a shout out. Actually, is like he started the club
Oh,
in
nice.
Santa Clarita in Valencia. And so that gave us the opportunity to play club that early. We were definitely, I guess, trailblazers in volleyball in that community, in the sense of like we started the first team at our school growing up. Went to OLPH kindergarten through 8th grade, and we started a team there, a co-ed team at one point. Whatever we could,
Yeah.
and so we played there, and then luckily Southern California has volleyball for the most part at high school. At high schools, I'm pretty sure everywhere,
Yeah.
mostly everywhere. And it's not like one of those new states that where they're passing,
Right.
to play volleyball. But they we meaning my brothers, we're only 3 years apart. So we were able to kind of make moves together, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Yep.
Like we could put a team together if we needed to.
Yeah, you got a half
But
a team already.
yeah, exactly. We didn't need to for club. We didn't really need to for high school. But starting, to answer your question, early on, I think 4th grade was
Oh,
when we
shoot.
started. Yeah, 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 at school, which was pretty cool because there was already a league. Our school just didn't have a team,
Yeah.
and so it was, the classic scraping people together to play, and like
Yeah.
who plays basketball and who doesn't
Right.
want to, go home right after school or whatever. Yeah.
Ah, yeah, and just to give you a little perspective, up here in Connecticut, it's uncommon to find a school that has an actual boys team in high school, let alone in middle school.
Something that I've always known, and something, especially as I grew up, that I always wanted to help be a part of. And, we hear grow the game. And
Yeah.
so we'll get into some of those things of,
Yeah.
I have this thought, like people just say, grow the game, grow the game, grow the game. But how,
Right.
how are we actually growing the game? What are we doing? Things
Yeah.
like this, for
Yeah.
example.
And
Yeah.
now for you, what is the hook that, kept you playing volleyball?
Another interesting question. I think a mixture of my competitiveness and my goals that I've set since I was really young. I've had a goal of, you know, playing college volleyball, of winning a national championship. That didn't happen, but even playing in a national championship,
Right.
goals of being on the national team, goals of playing in the Olympics. So I think that's just where my mind has been. And once I set my mind to something, I want to make it happen.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's never actually, I've never experienced like burnout or those sort of
Mm-hmm.
stories are definitely real. But for me, it's always just been like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I want to do. I've never had an issue with it. And I definitely understand those that have. And I
Mm-hmm.
actually said that in my little speech I gave at the end of the year, um, with our team banquet, that I've never really experienced that, but this past season, the guys that I was playing with made it even more fun, and brought
Yeah.
it to a level that I didn't even think could. So
Yeah.
the reason I share that is to find that now at my over 10 years, right, of playing
Mm-hmm.
volleyball, which is crazy to think about, uh, is pretty cool, and hopefully continue that track.
Nice. And now, did you play other sports, or was volleyball your main sport from middle school on?
Yeah, I played other sports, but it's funny. I decided to drop those sports like pretty early. I played golf, I played baseball, I played football, I played basketball, basically everything. I always say like everything but soccer,
Yeah.
uh, because a large part of it was we had sports at our school as well.
Mm-hmm.
Made it super easy, and basically got to 10 years old, and it was like, all right, I have to drop all the outside of school sports. And so that was baseball. And so I chose to play club volleyball, and then still played basketball and golf and
Yeah.
volleyball at school as well.
Okay. And now, were you always a libero?
Good question. It's funny. I always knew that I was going to be a libero, just because I knew I wasn't going to be 6'7".
Yeah.
Uh, my mom's 5'1". She'll like the shout out on that. But my dad is 6'4", and the middle brother is actually 6'4" or 6'5" as well. So maybe if I got the height genes, but I was always kind of told that I would, you know, be a good libero or kind of fit in that position. And I knew I wasn't going to be crazy tall. So I played libero whenever I started USA High Performance back then. I was a libero. For club for I think many years until I was like 16. Uh, outside hitter. And then
Yeah.
I played outside hitter and actually set 1 year in high school. So I definitely got a little bit of all of it. But it's weird because looking back, if I forgot all that, I would just say, yeah, I was a libero because I always knew or felt like I was going to be a libero.
Yeah.
I love
Okay.
hitting.
Yes, I had Micah on Christensen, and he was talking about, he was a hitter, or he wanted to be an outside hitter because when you hit a ball, people hear it. He said when you're a setter, nobody hears that, and it's
Yep.
like you don't snap heads when you do a nice set.
Yep.
So
I like how much, obviously we could dive into this a lot more, but how much more, I guess you could say, involved as an outside hitter, for example, is, your chances of touching the ball are even more. And
hmm
so for me, it's just fun to be involved in that
yeah,
much more. And you get to serve in the collegiate and international level. You don't get to serve as liberos, but we're gonna work on changing that eventually.
yes,
I don't know how.
absolutely. Now, speaking of the hook, we talked about the hook that volleyball had on you. What's more rewarding, picking up that dime serve on somebody just, he just laced one at you. Maybe he's like Jacob Pastor, dropped an 80-mile on you and you just dug it up, or digging up, your middle blocker blows the coverage and you got this one guy coming out of the back row. What's more rewarding, digging that or digging the serve or passing the serve?
It's a really good question because, talk about that outside hitter kind of conversation. I think the fans, the crowd, the viewers, whatever, they don't have the appreciation yet for like that reception, for example. People that really know volleyball, they do. And they understand how hard that can be.
Mm-hmm.
Not that digging the ball isn't hard, but they react to that a little bit more. Whereas like there's almost a perception of you have to be perfect or you're supposed to be perfect on serve receive. Um, so to answer the question, I would say almost like in my own head, it could be the reception.
Yeah.
I know that it's super fun to get one of those digs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's definitely an aspect that's super fun, getting a dig and everyone going crazy. And usually that there's like the dig to maybe kill right after. Sometimes if the reception isn't killed right after, then it's kind of forgotten about. At least maybe not amongst your team,
Yeah.
but overall in the rally. So I guess that's a good way to put it, is if it's a dig to a kill or a good pass to a kill, right after, either one,
Yeah.
because it's kind of like that hype and that energy right away.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, how would you describe I guess the spirit of a libero? What is the sort of the personality of a libero?
I love this question. I think you got to put up there, and it's got to be top three, is consistency. I think, again, talking about that whole topic of conversation, there's only so much you can do as a libero, but you have to be really good at it.
Yes.
And I think your margin of error, all of that, it's tough. And if you have a bad pass, you have to be able to respond right away. And you can't just go from bad pass to maybe swinging yourself out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention that if you have a bad pass and a bad swing, that's not tough. But I always phrase it like there's no outs. You just have to go right back to exactly what you know you can do
Yeah.
and what you can do,
Yeah.
especially because it's a position of opportunities that you don't necessarily have control over,
Yeah.
right? So you have someone serving a ball at you. You don't know exactly where they're going to serve it, how they're going to serve it, whatever. You have someone hitting at you, and you definitely don't know exactly that, right? So you're playing off of other people rather than a little bit more of your own game, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. That's a great answer. I never actually thought about that. As a libero, you're really just you're a digging machine. You can't like you said, just blow off a bad pass. I'm going to stuff somebody or I'm going to crush a ball. You don't have those to get
Yeah,
clear out your head. You've just got to get ready and goldfish and
exactly.
do
Yeah,
another
and let
pass.
alone you can't even go back and serve
Right. Yeah.
the collegiate and international game. So you don't have that way to get that out.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now, you finished high school and college was next. What made you pick Long Beach State? Who else were you looking at?
Yeah, I'll start there. So I kind of narrowed my selection from the start just a little bit. Obviously, there's not that many schools to begin with, especially back then. But I always wanted to stay in SoCal. That was one of my big things. And if that could happen, then, I wanted it to. Not that I was against looking at other options, but if I could make these happen, then, that was the goal. And so I started with, in a little more serious way, Long Beach, UCLA, USC, and Pepperdine. And so, uh, I could talk about how I narrowed down each one of them, but basically got to Long Beach and UCLA for a while. And that was kind of the battle. Um, Again, like I mentioned earlier, my three cousins went to UCLA. I
Yeah.
grew up watching UCLA, face painted UCLA. Here's the kicker: my room was UCLA themed. Not even kidding. Uh, and I decided to go to Long Beach. So, right, why? Um, there's a lot of reasons. We'll start by like just the simple location.
Mm-hmm.
I love the location near the beach. Um, it's a little more mellow. It's not crazy
Mm-hmm.
city vibe, and all of those things. I love the coaches. I had a relationship with them, and I loved what they were doing and what they have done, and what I knew that they would do. Um, Again, like I mentioned earlier, it's a decision more than just volleyball, but who I was going to become as a man, as
Mm-hmm.
a boyfriend, someday a father, all of that. And my parents made that very clear to me as well, as that there's more in this decision. Not to say that the other decision wouldn't have that, but I just felt that those things, were in a really good place there. And the reason I think I got that feeling as well, I always give, a little nod to my brother that was at Long Beach. And I always tell people, don't confuse it. I didn't really go to Long Beach for him, more so I got to have an inside look of what the program was like, what the coaches were like,
Mm-hmm.
uh, what life was like down here. And so that gave me, I think, that little push of, okay, this is where I want to be. And also probably that, you know, feeling of comfort
Yeah.
that this is what it could be like. I loved the communication style that they had and how upfront and willing to talk they were. For me, that's huge. And then again, just location,
Yeah.
and success of the program. And then lastly would be like academics. They had my major that I wanted to do, which was business.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seemed a little bit more real life rather than maybe picking some random major or something that I wasn't fully invested in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. And now that first year, as a freshman, what was that like? Was there a first of all, I guess, was there a big adjustment to the level of play coming from, 18 club or whatever, whatever you're playing, and now you're playing at the college level with, guys who are not just a single age. They are 22, 23 years old, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. You're playing. I think that's actually right there is the biggest thing. Most people haven't played consistently, at least with people that are maybe 4 years older than them,
Right.
right? um, Maybe even regardless of volleyball or power or whatever, is you're also just interacting with and uh, hanging out with people that are 4 years, maybe 5 years older than you. So that's definitely an adjustment in itself. Um, but there's always an adjustment, whether it's from club to high school or high school to college or whatever it may be. I feel like I made that adjustment fairly quickly, at least mentally, of like, this is what I want to do and this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Um, and then I feel like everything kind of came from there. And that's what I always tell people as advice is like, don't go in scared or that you shouldn't be here or that these people are too big for you or whatever, right?
You're right.
And it doesn't have to be in an arrogant way or a cocky way or anything, but just like, this is what I came to do. And 4 years ago, those people had the same thought.
Yeah.
And they truly understand that. Me being a senior, I really tried to give that to the freshmen that I was just with these past couple years. And
Yeah.
so uh, to me, it's definitely an adjustment, but how are you going to respond to that adjustment and not really blow it out of proportion
Yeah.
either?
When you came on, were you starting right away or were you coming off the bench or a role player?
So into the fall, it was kind of just like finding your spot, and
Yeah.
obviously me making, I guess you could say making my case, or playing ball.
Yep.
And uh, if I remember correctly, I didn't like have the starting spot right away. It was definitely like an earned thing, and
Yeah.
um, I would say it was a little maybe more open
Yeah.
than some other places. They had just graduated their Libero
Oh,
that
so it was good
they
timing then.
just
It's
won
just
in 2019. So there wasn't that sort of thing.
yeah.
But there were other people in the program. I definitely had to compete. But it was, for me, what I do remember is regardless of, practice every day, and I don't know, I always, people that go to like these clinics or camps or whatever, you like don't read into the pie. That
Right.
was kind of always the thought. Um, but for me, the memory was we had a tournament in Canada, actually. And I think it was Trinity Western, Alberta, all those teams.
Okay. Yep.
And UCLA was there. I think Ohio State was there, but I think we only competed against the Canadian teams. And it's weird. Like I remember this moment, and I always kind of think back to it, is that was almost like I had the starting spot, but that was where I feel like I gained kind of some of the respect, I guess you could say, from the people that had been on the team, or
Mm-hmm.
uh, gave that's what gave me a chance to step into a little bit more of like a leadership role, not just like, okay, I'm a libero and I'm just kind of standing here.
Right.
I felt a little bit of a shift of people asking me what I thought, like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's probably the thing that I remember the most. It was a long time ago, but it was before COVID. So we had, geez, what was that? Almost, a half a year without volleyball after
Yeah.
that, after the season was shut down. So we actually had our own practices in the fall at a local gym that basically, like, we had to pay our way
Yeah.
to go to practice every day, as everyone was pitching in money to rent out this gym space. And next thing you know, 4 months later, we're finally cleared to actually play and practice. But we
Wow.
don't have to get into that too much. Yeah.
No. And now, for your years at Long Beach, what was sort of, were there any dates on the calendar that were circled every year? It's like, oh, I can't wait for this tournament. I can't wait for that match. Or what was the, highlight? Or, yeah, I guess what was a highlight? The date circled.
Yeah. The professional like answer, or the professional mentality, and this is not just like there, I think there actually are two sides, is I do go about it in a way where it's like every game matters, and
Right.
trying not to have that mentality. But obviously, there's going to be the outside. We always talk about like avoiding the noise at Long Beach, but there's going to be that outside noise, the outside hype, and um, as well. But there's definitely some, validity to some games, or maybe the rivalry of some games.
Right.
And for us, that I feel like it was always UCLA and it was always Hawaii.
Yeah.
And um, the cool thing about our conference too is conference is really good. So once you get into conference, you're playing good volleyball. And so not that you're, pushing just to get to conference, but once conference comes around, it's like, all right, we got to go. Um, Make this push, because you got to get out of the conference tournament,
Yeah.
and that's into the NCAA tournament. So it all matters. It's all super fun, but there's definitely some teams that are more fun to play, or that both teams are going to rise to that occasion.
Yeah.
And if you look back at our season, there were definitely some of those, after the fact, that you could say were circled.
Yeah.
UCLA, Hawaii, even Irvine, we knew was going to be a really, really good team this year. And um, for me as well, I would add, I love playing at home. I love playing at Long Beach, especially this last year. Talk about circling dates, circle all the home matches.
Yeah.
Was a blast. It was so much fun. And I think we sold out the pyramid 6 times this year, including, NCAA tournament games. Unreal.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So much fun, so much energy, and actually being able to play for those fans, and realize that those people are coming to watch our team is crazy.
So the
Super
fans
fun.
show up.
Yeah, the fans show up at Long Beach. I mean, the pyramid holds maybe a little over 4,000, and
Yeah.
we sold out 4 times during the regular season, and um, both matches, the semifinal and final of the NCAA
Yeah.
tournament. So a great atmosphere, and it gets loud too,
Yeah.
even though it's a pretty big place.
And now in your conference, what was the one road match that you like, it's going to be loud and they're going to be, you're going into enemy territory. Which gym or which place was
Well, 100% Hawaii.
yeah.
A little look into our schedule is we go there one year and then they come here one year and we play back to back. So this year we played at Long Beach. So that wasn't a road match. But to answer the question, years before, when we do go to Hawaii, unreal. I have a story from what was it now, 3 years ago, I think. And we finished the second set, and there's kind of like a timeout, a longer timeout, TV timeout. And we went into the locker room, and I didn't realize until we went into the locker room, my hearing was like shot almost. My ears were
Wow.
ringing walking into the locker room. It was so loud, and it was like neck and neck game too in the last couple points. And I think it was like 24-23, and we were back to serve, and they were just like yelling like crazy. And that is probably the biggest, look into international
Mm-hmm.
matches. I've been in Poland where there were 14,000. It was, what was it, a quarterfinal match, USA versus Poland,
Mm-hmm.
and we were there for World Championships, and that was insane. It's a different level of
Right.
they're cheering the same thing. They know what to say. They know volleyball. So that road match to Hawaii is always super fun.
Yeah.
Let alone you can go to Hawaii.
Yes, that's true. Absolutely. And now, for those seniors next year, what kind of advice do you have for them?
I would say again the same thing that I was talking about earlier to even freshmen is don't hold back anything. And we really lived by that this year. And I again said that actually in my uh, speech at our banquet was have no regrets. We really lived by that this year, and I think the last month or so especially. And so that's exactly what I would tell them going into the next season is have that, and also take the feelings and the losses, however you deal with it, into the next season.
Yeah.
For me, my first year, that was definitely something that I did. And I think that, mentality kind of kept us up of we know that we can compete and we can be here, but there's a lot that has to be done to actually make it happen and to be successful in those moments. And it really does come down to a point or two
Mm-hmm.
or a pass or two. And obviously that's a stressful way to think about it. But if you can keep your mind training that way in terms of just focus and intent, then I think that creates long-term success.
All right. And now, college is done. It's in the rearview mirror. You're moving on to your next stages.
Yep.
What words do you have for your coaches your college coaches?
Oh my, yeah, a lot. Just super thankful and thankful that they gave me the opportunity to to play. And I mean, even before that, the opportunity to even come to Long Beach and to want me to be a part of their program. Amazing. Super thankful. I'll always be super thankful of them, and uh, give so much back to them and how much they invested in me and cared about me. And, everything that I was saying before of why I went there is exactly what I wanted, and it was exactly what it was. There weren't any false promises. There weren't any, you know, just buttering people up to come there. It
Yeah.
was an open conversation. We created real friendships and amazing memories on and off the court, and just travel trips, talks on the plane, whatever it may be. So I'm always super thankful of them, and will always be thankful of them, especially as I think regardless of success, but when success comes, there's always more gratitude,
Yeah.
or even the next step. It's like, okay, I'm going to play pro here. And you just feel so much gratitude towards them for being a part of making that happen. And so that's always how I will feel.
Yeah. Excellent. And now, looking back on that last season, who was that joker? Who was that person that could always crack a tense moment that just, all right, get everybody sort of refocus and just chill?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Hands down. Well, okay, I'll give a shout out to Sotos. Was pretty funny at times, but the Joker, exactly what you're saying, to me at least, was Skylar. Skylar Varga, he would, oh my gosh, he would come into the huddle and it's like, random things or just funny things and keeping us together. And we warmed up next to each other actually. And so we were always kind of like in the 10-foot line together warming up. And it was a great time.
Excellent.
He's funny. He's a funny guy. And we actually had to vote for this like team thing. And I was like, yeah, I voted Skylar. And I realized that people didn't have that same maybe comedic relationship with him.
Yeah.
But we definitely had a little bit of like goofiness together.
Nice. And now, what was your most hated drill? Now that your coaches can't make you run that thing anymore, what was the one that you like, oh God, why are you
Oh,
doing that again?
that's a great question. Without exposing, no, I'm kidding. Well, it's actually funny because for liberos, some drills can be tough if they're not actually, in it or included or whatever, anything to do with hitting.
Hmm.
Uh, for me, it was definitely just what do they call it? Just like routes when the hitters are, working with the setters basically, and we're passing down balls.
Yeah.
But something I will say about that is, and I tell this to the younger guys or anyone, is don't take those moments for granted. You can actually work on things in these moments. Yes, it
Hmm.
might be my least favorite drill or whatever, but if you're doing it for 30 minutes, you have to get something out of it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that again is just a little look into the fight and the mental part of it all. And to me, how you can be consistent and actually
Yeah.
have success in the end. Yeah.
Yeah. And now, when did you start showing up on sort of the national team's radar? Was that in club or high school or later?
Yeah, I always did the youth national team stuff. So back then it was called high performance. And so I did all the way from, I think they called it future select to youth to junior and then national team. So I did the youth national team. We traveled to Costa Rica and Tunisia was world championships. And then junior national team was actually during COVID. So I made that team, but we didn't go anywhere
Yeah.
because COVID.
Right.
But then actually after that, the national team was 3 summers ago. So my first time with them going to like a Pan Am tournament, actually, maybe that was 4 years ago, actually. I don't remember, but I know that was 3 years ago. Yeah. And then 2 years ago, I made my first VNL roster. And so that summer, the next summer, and then this summer. Yeah. So that would make it three. And I actually got to travel that just, based off the quad and how it
Yeah.
worked. I got to travel to that week one and we went to Brazil. So that was awesome. Kind of thrown right into it. It was super fun. Um, and now we're still rocking.
Yeah. And what was it like that first? Well, I guess first of all, was like, do you remember where you were when you got that call? Like, hey, your
Ooh,
number's been called. You're going.
well, actually, it might have been, um, I guess I'll give two answers for the national team in general. I didn't really know that it was going to be a thing. I think it was actually Coach Knipe that told me, or maybe hinted at it that I was going to be on that VNL roster. And then for the Brazil, it was actually Eric was not in the gym yet that first week or something like that. I think they were still playing in their season the way that the calendar, was figured out. But there were only three liberos on the VNL roster. And so we knew that he was out. And so it was going to be, us two going to Brazil. And so it wasn't necessarily a call, but
Yeah.
I do have a call story. I was in Canada again, and we were competing, and it was either NORCECA or Pan Am, one of those. And we had just finished, we lost a match against Cuba. And this was later in the summer. Matt Ferbringer called me after that match. I thought it was just like calling and talk about the match, which was like, what? Okay. Not necessarily normal, but like fine, let's talk about the match. And he basically just said something like, what could make a loss a little bit better? And I was like, what? Like, I don't really know what you're asking me. He's like, well, like, if we said that you're going to come to world championships with us. And so that for me, I was just like, what? Um, we still had to finish out the tournament. I think we
Yeah.
had one or two more games, but went straight from there to I think, yeah, Poland to meet the team there and
Yeah.
train and play in world championships. And that was an unreal experience. So that's kind of like my phone call story if
Nice.
I
Yeah.
have one. Yeah.
Ah, and how about that first time donning the jersey? You know, here it is. Do you remember that?
That was pretty cool. And I will say we don't have our names on the back of our jerseys at Long Beach, um, which I'm not, I don't have an opinion on, but it was just like I hadn't really seen my name on the back of a
Oh,
jersey in a while. So I think that was like the biggest thing actually is,
yeah.
oh my gosh, here's my name on the back of a jersey and it's a USA jersey. That was insane. And to have it be with the national team, because again, I did the youth stuff. I'd have my name on that jersey, but this was like, okay, this is my national team number, or this is my national team jersey. So that was pretty exciting.
Nice. And you know, I had when Micah was on, you know, I asked him what was that like that first moment walking in to the gym with the seniors, and he said
Yeah.
it was humbling. I was just happy to be there. Do you remember your moment you walked in and they're the legends?
I think that's actually a really good way to put it is you're happy to be there. And a lot of people have, I mean, they'll tell you the stories of you're in the gym first couple of years or whatever, and you're wiping floors.
Yeah.
You have a towel in your hand, you're doing anything you can. And like 2 summers ago, I had a little bit of a different story early on. It was like kind of thrown into it. But you get the towel back in your hand eventually. Um, Definitely humbling and really cool experience of like these guys have done it. And it's almost like I just want to soak everything up and
Right.
try and learn, whether that's directly asking them questions or just watching. There's definitely a feeling of like you don't want to interfere, you don't want to kind of get in their way,
Yeah.
if I'm being honest. But at this point now, everyone's super cool, super chill. I've traveled with a lot of them at this point. But it is interesting. You talk about college of playing with someone that's 4 years older, maybe try 15 years older, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
so that's definitely different. And you have people with families and
Right.
all over the country. It's definitely different in that aspect,
Yeah.
but humbling and a great learning opportunity, especially with my thoughts and goals of I want to get there someday. It's you want to actually just learn from these people who are doing it
Yeah.
and take that as you will,
Yeah. Nice. And now, what is the sort of the locker? Is the locker room similar to college? It's sort of like with everybody there, because I've heard, you know, so like I've had other players on who they play pro, they play national team and college, and they compare the national team and college for that a similar vibe versus pro. It's a different mindset. It's that's your job, and you know everybody's sort of doing what they can for their job.
It is your job and your, I guess the best way to simply put it is it's your job and your body is a part of your job as well. So to answer that, it's like I come back to Long Beach and it's after practice and I'm like, all right, we're stretching and people are, they still are interested in stretching, but you see a big difference if people are stretching for like 30 minutes after, in the national team gym or just the extra stuff. You're
Yeah.
hopping on a bike, you're getting treatment, you're sitting there and stretching. So that to me is usually kind of that time where you're all there sitting down and stretching,
Yeah.
um, or kind of just not debriefing, but just taking a breath before whatever's next.
Right.
And that's, I guess, pretty similar to college. Yeah. A little bit different just in the sense of, college or even pro, you're on that team and you're there for a while. And national team is a lot of in and out and
Yeah.
travel and making rosters, like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's like one of the biggest differences. But the camaraderie and that, I guess, like locker room talk or whatever you kind of mean is
Right.
definitely still there. Probably a lot more of it comes from travel trips, I
Yeah.
would say. And you actually relate that to college. We always would try and travel early on in the year to get that exact experience.
Yeah. Get that
Yeah.
bonding and just that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. And now, do you have any pregame rituals? Any, do you do a nap? Do you have a certain meal, certain playlist you listen to?
Not a huge napper. Sometimes I would nap. Um, Depends when we're on the road or not, or kind of what's going on. But speaking of Luke Combs, I would listen almost every home game on my bike because I would bike to the gym as soon as I moved out of the dorms. I lived in a house pretty nearby campus, and I would listen to "Doing This" by Luke Combs. Basically, in the lyrics, it says, if I wasn't doing this, or I'd still be doing this basically,
Yeah.
uh, if I wasn't doing this. And so that for me was again just a way to go in grateful and humbled,
Yeah.
but also knowing why I'm doing this. Um, and I mean, it's a great song if you haven't
Yeah.
listened to it. Uh, I would do that. Let's see. This year, my girlfriend's dad actually, shout out, wrote this awesome prayer. And I started reading that before every game as soon as he sent it because it was just too good of a prayer. And
Yeah.
I always kind of like talk to myself on the bench and say a prayer, talk to myself. If you see me, there's like a couple of videos or pictures of it, just kind of like sitting on the bench. And I just like to flood my mind with, all positivity,
Yeah.
gratitude, everything before going out there. And then I kind of get up and slap the floor. That was something I did
All
since the
right.
beginning. Kind of just like go time.
Yep.
Uh, so stuff like that. I always tell people I don't have any like magic potion or whatever. Uh, or they think that creating something on the fly or making something up is going to be like the change. For me, usually, I gave you a couple examples. Usually the answer is just consistency of, in my entire life and just lifestyle, not having to make something up right
Yeah.
away. Not that all those things are made up, but you know what I mean by that is
Right.
just staying consistent and not having to like rely on one thing, but also just incorporating these things um, into my
Yeah.
pregame or even, the week by
Right.
week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And now, what shoes are you currently playing in?
I have some Mizunos. I have some Asics. We'll see.
All
I've
right.
worn this in the past. If anyone wants to sponsor
You're
me, then
open. You're ready to go here.
Long Beach is sponsored by Asics. So I wore Asics at Long Beach the past couple of years. Over the
Yeah.
summer, I've worn Asics. I've worn some Adidas. I've worn Mizuno is USA Volleyball right now. So a couple shoes there,
Nice.
but currently Asics.
All right. And now, what does a typical day look like for you? Like, is practice in the morning, afternoons? What's sort of that, sort of your day, average day?
Yeah, I like this question because like if I said it out loud, it would seem like pretty short, but when you get into the details, it can be a little bit longer. It actually goes exactly what I was just saying with everything is, for example, if we have practice at 9 a.m. and then we have lift at maybe 12, right? Oh, 9 to 1 and you're done. Or maybe even shorter is 9 to 11:30 and then lift until maybe 12:30. Seems like a short day, but there's so much more to it and so much in
Mm-hmm.
between. You're not showing up at 9. You obviously got to wake up, get going. Depending on when practice is maybe stretch before, maybe get moving a little bit before. Right now I'm in Long Beach for the most part, so I have a little bit of a drive. So 20-30 minute drive, get there. If you haven't eaten already, then eat, uh, stretch, warm up. A lot of people like to get into the weight room early and obviously not do a full lift, but get something in and then stretch and do their own warm up before team warm up. And then you practice, and then probably the exact same thing after, unless if you have lift, and you go straight to lift. Lift is usually an hour, hour and a half, and then probably some cardio and stretching after, and then uh, get some lunch, and then you're home,
Yeah.
right? Um, the maybe you've heard all of that. A little bit more exciting part of the non-volleyball part would be every day for me is a little bit different, but also pretty consistent. There's like little things that are thrown my way
Mm-hmm.
that I have to do, but sometimes it's responding to emails and it's like some brand things.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's working on some orders of merch of mine that I've sold, or maybe like potential brand deals coming up. Recently, it's been a lot of filming things and a couple brand deal things that I've been doing,
Yeah.
and um, definitely it's a little different now too because the time is ticking at this point where it's like
Right.
and so like I said, sometimes it's cleaning out my room or
Yeah.
packing things, but also like valuing that time and hanging out with my roommates a lot and my girlfriend a lot as much as I can, and just having that time together is definitely valuable. Sometimes I go and do private lessons. Um, some things I'm sometimes I'm planning things for the future or with
Yeah.
my personal brand or the trading card things that I've done or the sponsorship here that I'm, working with. All of that usually amounts to a pretty busy day, whether it's all of that in one day or kind
Hmm.
of spread out throughout the week. But I like it. It keeps me busy and
Nice.
it's all fun to me.
Well,
Yeah.
and you really you have to do it because there's a volleyball aspect of you, and then there's the entrepreneurial aspect. Your content, your branding, your coach, all of sort of getting all of that lined up,
Yeah.
and keeping it moving.
Yep. And it's definitely something that when I started doing all of it too, especially most of it, a lot, for example, the merch, the trading cards, that stuff, like the personal brand stuff of like that logo you have behind you right there.
Yep.
That was also like a promise to everyone that was requesting that. That's how it
Oh,
came
okay.
out to be, really. It was like people were asking me about volleyball tips. People were asking me about, all these different things, volleyball, if I would do clinics, if I did private lessons, if I, had a jersey they could buy, stuff like that. So
Hmm.
everything that I've created, everything that I've done has come from the fans or come from the people that have been interested in it. And so I've just used that and kind of those top five, I guess you could say, questions and turned it into something. I've done clinics,
Hmm.
I do private lessons here and there. I've created a replica jersey. I've created right there my personal brand logo.
Yeah.
Um, and creating ways to actually grow the game. I know we talked a little bit
Right.
about
Yeah.
of like how can we actually grow the game, and so I actually have them here is like creating these trading cards.
Yeah.
And so that for me is people ask often is like, does it get exhausting or does it get tiring? But it really is. I love doing it, but it's also the people that are supporting it and the people that have been behind it for so
Hmm.
long that wanted it. That's where it really comes from of like, okay, I got to get back to this, or
Yeah.
I got to create another card, or this is coming up. We should have a card here. Stuff like that.
Yeah. It's something you
Um,
love. It's a passion, and like
yep,
you said, you want to
yep,
grow the game. And all of those vehicles let you
yeah,
grow that game.
exactly. And what's the walk the talk, right?
Yeah.
Walk the talk, right? Yeah. Uh, Again, I heard grow the game for so long. It's like I never really thought about it actually, but it's like, what does that mean? Or like
Hmm.
what are you doing to grow the game? And obviously being a part of it, supporting it is great. But me personally, I felt like I was in a position, especially with social media and
Absolutely.
how I had grown in that sense was I feel like I do have a little bit of not an obligation, but uh, a space where I really can grow the game and
Hmm.
impact, especially with the questions I was getting and the support that I was getting. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of how a lot of that came to be.
Yeah, when Eric was on, I asked him a similar question. What do we need to do to, what needs to be done to make the men's game more popular here? Because, have the colleges have, 4.5 scholarships or whatever it is. Like, you're not going to grow the game. You're not going to draw boys into playing that. But,
Yep.
like with his social media, with your social media, his TikToks, and what Taylor does too, that all helps get more exposure.
100%. I'll give, well, definitely all those guys and the individuals. I guess I'll start there. I think there's a lot of power in the individuals, and when people can kind of grab onto an individual or have this person to not always just look up to, but
Hmm.
just to look at,
Right.
or they're playing the game or they're doing this, right? The individuals are huge. I'll give some credit to whoever was a part of it. For example, our national championship match was on mainstream ESPN.
Yes.
Amazing, unreal. Um, After throwing out a compliment, I'm done. This is the first time I've been able to speak about it. I told myself, and it was really tough, that I wouldn't speak about it when I was still in the NCAA and
Hmm.
still playing. But the NCAA is okay. I'll not to me not doing
Yep.
a great job, and I don't think they want to. Alan Knipe said it a while, I think 3 years ago in a press conference after we lost, or maybe it was before, but anyways, that year that we lost to Hawaii in the championship is, same question. How can we grow the game? Well, um, you know, let's put more into the game. And
Yep.
he said it's the best kept secret. And to be honest, I think 100%, I think that's true. And I think that they, in some capacity, are trying to hide that secret, or they just don't want to put in the effort. I mean,
Yep.
whatever it really is, there's definitely an issue there. And prime example, and I'm fine calling them out at this point, is the NCAA Instagram. You talk about social media, you talk about um, promoting the
Yeah.
games. Don't know the exact year. I have the screenshots, I have the receipts, but I don't know them exactly. But there was a time, it was the year when BYU and Hawaii played in the national championship, I think. They stopped posting about the NCAA volleyball Instagram account. It used to be just NCAA volleyball, which was men's and women's volleyball.
Yeah.
Um, and I think a little bit of beach maybe. They stopped posting about men's volleyball and they didn't create another men's volleyball Instagram, and they changed it, at least in the bio, to NCAA women's
Women.
volleyball,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine. I'm all for women's volleyball. I
Yeah.
love women's volleyball, all of that, right? Great. They didn't create anything for men's volleyball. Some fans and some people created an account that was NCAA MVB for a while, and that was the only one I would ever promote. I'm not promoting that they created one eventually, and I was like, I'm not gonna promote that because they're not posting anything to it. Anyways, long story short, they showed up, I think it was last year, and they post about the quarterfinals or semifinals and then the championship. A couple posts,
Yeah.
done, silent. They posted maybe once in the fall or something that men's volleyball is growing, and everyone wants to comment, well, yeah, but you're not helping, right?
Right.
And then again, they come back and you look at the comments this year and it's like, oh, NCAA woke up, or someone found the login for the NCAA account, right?
Yeah.
And so the NCAA is great. They have a lot of power. They have a lot of resources. Use like that Instagram account grew a lot in that little time period.
Yeah.
If you did that the entire year and you have NCAA is the platform. You need people to be looking
Right.
at the NCAA for that. So maybe I'll work on some things that I think could help. I have a couple ideas, but maybe we'll have to have a follow-up podcast about
Yes.
that. I think that they have to be called out to some extent. And um, actually reminds me, I got to follow up on that and try and I again promised myself that I would try and stay up on that even when I was out of the NCAA, and
Yeah.
it doesn't affect me anymore,
Yeah.
because these athletes, they deserve more. And I think for a while it was just kind of people just take the position, even myself, of like, I don't care, it's whatever, you know. Um, but you see, for example, what happened with women's basketball and these other sports, that if you kind of push a little bit,
Yeah.
that secret will unfold a little bit. But um, I, what women's volleyball has done and what they're doing there is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And no one at all wants that to stop or to see that diminish. But I also think that men's volleyball could
Yeah.
maybe be not right up with them, but up there a little bit more,
Yeah.
you know?
A lot of people don't realize, both volleyballs, like up here in the Northeast, I'm the high school parents that my daughter goes to school with, she plays on a high school team. A lot of the parents have never seen a collegiate volleyball game, and they
Yep.
just see what they see in high school. But when you go to college, the women's games, I prefer women's volleyball over women's basketball
Yeah.
any day. And it's just, and let alone a men's game. We went up to Ottawa to catch the VNLs because there's no other place in the Northeast that we will see a
Yep.
level of volleyball like that. And it's just, people need to see that, whether it's
Yeah.
the, Team USA doing a tour of exhibition tours, just even Boston, New York, that would be huge.
Yep. It's definitely a whole nother conversation of it. There has to be a visibility aspect.
Yeah.
I was actually talking to someone today about that exact thing. Is there has to be some sort of connection where it doesn't feel out of reach.
Yeah.
It's like we have our national team, for example, but do you really know about the national team? Have you seen them play? Right? It's tough. It's
Right.
tough because a lot of it's international competition, but there's definitely more we could be doing, and hopefully we will be doing. But again, on the collegiate stage, it's like that's the direct link. You have people in high school and they look to college, right?
Yep.
Um, there could definitely be more, and there will be.
Yeah.
I think programs are doing a great job. Hawaii and Long Beach and
Right.
many other programs, but obviously I would give a bunch of credit. I was there, but a bunch of credit to Long Beach and the people beyond just the volleyball program of
Yeah.
actually making it something and making it a thing. And I know it doesn't just happen. There's push for it, and there's a lot of work that's going into it to make it
Yeah.
something. It
Yeah.
is the thing. It is the thing at Long Beach, men's and women's. And again, that's not to say that other sports aren't, but when you go to, what's the stat? 7 out of the last 8 NCAA tournaments, it's there's something to say. And
Yeah.
that's just Long Beach, but there's all these other programs that
Mm-hmm.
are growing, and you see their Instagrams growing, and it'll happen.
Yep.
But there's
Well, even
definitely,
even like the VNLs, that's sort of hidden behind a paywall of VNL or Volleyball World. If ESPN could contract
yep.
something that just shows a couple of the Team USA games on ESPN, would just be huge.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. Would be like, what if they could just basically sell that or open
Right.
that up on ESPN, right? But yeah, Volleyball World's very exclusive with it,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't like bash them for it. I would
No,
say it's
they're
definitely
putting in the investment and everything into it,
correct.
but
Exactly. They've done a really good job
yes.
of making it happen and making it an event, and they want it done a certain way. I know that for sure.
Yeah.
The way they do it is unreal. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So shout out to them, and everything that they're doing is actually a perfect model. We just need it to be a little bit more accessible. So
Yes.
that's exactly what makes me think that something will happen.
Yeah.
And I think they're getting a little less strict on, like, for example, they wouldn't even let people kind of film with their phones or
Right.
repost polymetric stuff like that, because they want everything to be their content, which makes sense. They've
Yeah.
put in
They're
the
putting
work,
the
they've
money.
put in
Yep.
the investment, and they also, I know a big part of it is the quality. They want it to look a certain way, and
Mm-hmm.
it's worked because for a while now you see this amazing event, this amazing quality, and it's like, whoa, this is what volleyball could be. So there's definitely 99% good to it. We
Yeah.
just need a little give there on maybe accessibility,
Yeah.
or obviously they're an international thing, so it's different handling it with
Yeah.
each country probably as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, a little more accessibility there would be great.
But the
Or even,
quality of it is fantastic. My daughter and
yeah,
I were watching the Canada Japan match last night, and it's just like the slow mos of, Ishikawa flying out of the back row, and just like it's just amazing.
yeah, and they get good energy in the
Yeah,
crowd. Yeah,
yeah,
it's an experience as well, which is what sports fans want. An experience along
yeah,
with the match. Yeah.
yeah. And speaking of the VNL, so you were part of week one, right?
Yep. Yeah. Week 1 in Antalya, Turkey.
Yeah. So what was that experience like?
Yeah, it was awesome. So that was actually, I got to go in. That was, I guess you could say, like my debut. I went in and played on the defensive side our last match against, let's see, I already forgot. It's that next ball mentality.
Yeah.
Um, was it Turkey?
I think it was Turkey.
Against Turkey, yeah. Um, it seems like forever ago already. But I got to go in and play defense, got a couple digs, and super fun.
Nice.
That was amazing. Regardless of that, great guys, great team, super fun opportunity, and a great location.
Yeah.
We were at an amazing hotel, basically right on the beach. It's like all inclusive as well. It was really nice.
Nice. And now, where do you guys practice? It looks like when they were up in Ottawa, they practiced in like a school or something like that. For when you were in your week, where did you guys end up practicing? And what kind
You
of like
mean
do you
when we're on the
practice
road?
every day, or how's that work?
You mean when we're on the road, or like
Yeah,
when we're
like your first week of VNLs, like what was that sort of like? You have a game. Do you guys? Is there even practicing going on?
Yeah, so usually you get there a few days early, and depending on when you get in, maybe practice that day, maybe practice the next day. um, it just depends the schedule of it all. We
Yeah,
actually did play like that first day, so we got another whole day. So we got maybe uh, another practice, or maybe we would have gone there a day earlier. Um, it seems like they've kind of figured it out to, we want to be there 3 days early.
yeah,
We have 2 practices before. We usually get lifts in that day as well. And then if you have like an on-off schedule and you can lift in between, we lift in between as well. It's nonstop. I'd say that's that next level as well, where
yeah.
it's not like, oh, we have a day off and you're off. There's not really a day off. And our day off there was actually our busiest day. We had practice, we had lift, we had 2 film sessions, that sort
Yeah.
of thing.
Nice.
You're using those days off to catch up and be productive going forward. But
Yeah.
still a little downtime here and there.
Yeah. And now I noticed when we were up in Ottawa, we watched it seems like at the beginning of it, everybody sort of socializes around the refs, stand to do their stretches and they're using their bands and everything. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of like what's it? I forgot what I was gonna say, like relate it to, but especially across teams. We
Yeah.
do that kind of in NCAA where it's like, oh, haven't seen you in a couple months, and you're both doing your warm up, but you're kind of leaning against the pole, or it's like catching up between the
Yeah.
net. Yeah,
Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny. It's like, you just like they're just warming up, shooting the shit with whoever you're playing against, and it was
yeah,
cool.
yep, yeah.
Yeah.
And they've been playing against those guys, back and forth. They same NCAA, same international, and maybe they played. A lot of them maybe have played together on their same pro team or
Right.
played against each other for the past couple of years. So you definitely get that community. And even me playing in the like Pan Ams and NORCECAs and
Mm-hmm.
those tournaments against the same people for a while now, like we've become friends. So
Yeah.
very similar.
Yeah. Nice. And now, college was done and was, going pro the next logical solution, or were you, thinking about doing something else?
No, it was always pro. That was
Yeah.
always the next step. I had already kind of been playing with the national team, but I guess you could say timeline wise, that was the same. So pro and national team was kind of that next step, the next goal.
Yeah.
Uh, and here we are. Yeah.
And now you're going to play for Nice. How did that all sort of come together? Was going to France on one of your leagues you were looking at?
Yeah, that was so it's a little background. It's very hard to play professionally here and go over and play in Europe, but especially for liberos. And um, I would say I don't know if it would be arguably, but I think the hardest position to go over and play pro, and that's not really what I would think, but what I've heard,
Yeah.
um, for many reasons. But regardless of that, that plays a huge role in it all of almost the mentality of I'll play wherever or I'll do
Right.
whatever, comes my way. And that was the mentality for a while. And I always joke, it's not even a joke, but now it is because I'm going to play in Nice, France, which you type that into Google and it's a lot different, but an amazing place.
Right.
This whole past year, I was preparing mentally to be in a dark, cold place,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
literally getting as much sun as I could and really cherishing those days. And like, I'm not going to have this again, but I guess I am. So I got pretty lucky there. In terms of the process, things can happen pretty quickly and you're not allowed to do anything during season, but
Right.
after all that's said and done, uh, things happen and things shift. But the goal was always France or Germany.
Yeah.
Well, not always, but as soon as it kind of became real, and as soon as I learned a lot more about the leagues as well, and those were the goal, but also not lofty, but just knowing that it couldn't happen or it maybe wasn't gonna happen and it could be somewhere else. Again, just because it's hard to get in, especially as a
Right.
libero. Um, also there's so many things that go into it, the politics of it, but also just the movement and
Yeah.
maybe for example, if three other liberos in the league out of 14 teams don't move or don't leave their team,
Right.
that's two less spots that open up, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and so there's all those things about it, but Germany and France were kind of the goals for a while. And I guess funny story about that is uh, in I think it was third grade, we had to start taking a language with Rosetta Stone. And I apparently told my parents, yeah, I'm taking French, or I chose to take French so I can go play pro volleyball in France. And like thinking back on that story is just crazy that
Yeah.
now actually here. I didn't take French in high school just because like it wasn't offered the way I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
But the fact that here we are now and I'm actually going to play professional volleyball in France is amazing. And the league there is really good,
Yeah.
well-respected league and kind of hard to get into and play there. And uh,
What's the name of
really,
your team?
really good overall competition. It's Nice Volleyball.
Okay. There we go.
Spelled nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
And now, it's funny you were talking about playing in some dark places. When I did my podcast with Micah, it was from a
Yeah.
hotel in Siberia.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I was like, holy cow. Yeah, that was
Yep. That's an interesting place. There you go.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, and now when do you head over?
So right now, we're training for that Pan Am tournament,
Yeah.
and then there will be another NORCECA tournament in August, and I'll head over right after that. So
All
late
right.
August, is kind of the plan right now.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yep.
All right. So we got a couple of questions from coaches. Are you ready?
All right.
All right. What have been some of the little things that have made you a better passer?
Little things overall,
Yeah.
technically, just I'd say I always feel like I always start with the mentality of a little bit about what I was saying earlier of knowing that you have to be consistent, knowing that it doesn't always have to be perfect, but you're striving for that perfection, and that's where you want to be, right? Um, Another thing I'd say is not being just like glued or stuck to one thing or one style is a little bit of figuring it out myself in a way, if that makes sense.
Yep.
While also focusing on like a couple keys.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big thing we would talk about at Long Beach is like just have a short list of these couple keys or things that you're thinking about or working on. So that's probably the last thing I would say is I've really just taken that into fact of like, okay, what, and it could be different, maybe month to month or whatever. Of, this is working for me right now. I'm gonna just keep my shoulders forward, or I'm just gonna focus on, having really strong legs, something like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I coach it is what can you tell yourself or what can I tell you to get that result that we want, right? And sometimes you got to kind of go the back way. And that's always how I teach is, if I want more space between your body, maybe that has to do with your legs a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more, or maybe, vice versa. Instead of telling someone, hey, move your legs, just tell them that they have to pass the ball with their shoulders in front of them.
Yeah.
Then they have to move their feet. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the way that I look at it.
All right. And this question's from my daughter. So she's a
Yeah.
libero. She struggles with that sort of chest receive pass of like, do I swing or do I try to overhand receive it?
Yeah,
What's something you tell the kids in that sort of,
for
for that
sure.
moment?
Yeah, it's not talked about a lot, but like hands passing, I think is definitely an option. Something I would say is like have that in the toolbox, and if you can play that ball. But here we're probably talking more of like an open up situation, and probably exactly what I was just saying, right? So if you think about keeping your shoulders forward or in front of you, then you have to move your feet rather than just thinking like, okay, I have to move my feet, I have to move my feet all the time. It's like, what is the end product that I want? Therefore, the other things will happen or I'll make those happen so that I can have that end product. So trying to keep that shoulder in front and not swing, right? Keep it here almost, and then the rest of your body will kind of go with you. That's how I kind of think about it.
All right.
Yeah.
Excellent. And you were just talking about different tools in your toolbox. And what I've seen, since I've come back into volleyball is like, we've always taught run, when you're chasing down a ball, sort of pop it up like that. Now you're
Yep.
almost seeing people are trying to do the scoop shot, tuck and roll. And it's like, that's, if those kids aren't taught how to roll, you can they can really injure themselves that way.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say I'm taking credit for it, but I started doing that. I think it was my freshman year. I don't know for sure if I was just like a smart in my own way of like doing that automatically. I don't know. Or if it was like actually like just because of knee problems or something. I think that's kind of how it was created
Yeah.
or how I did it. Not to say that other people hadn't done it before, but now you're seeing it all over. And
Right.
I think it was more so of like an eye opener to coaches as well, that it doesn't have to be like this.
Right.
You can open up that
And
hand,
you have control of,
control, and you can turn on your back and you can get that ball high, you can get into the air. For me, it was just a way to get to the ball more and
yeah.
control, right? It
Yeah.
was like I wasn't really a fan of this whole like thing here, which works sometimes, but
But you have
in
such a
situations,
narrow
having that
area. Yeah.
tool for sure. And I mean, you hit a ball like this, right? So
Mm-hmm.
why not up here?
Yep. Absolutely. All right. So another question. What is the skill you've most improved on that you're most proud of?
A good one. Um, I would say it's gone, you know, in different ways at different times. I'd say my ability to cover more court and serve receive this past year was a goal that I had and something that I definitely accomplished. I think I finished the season passing 40% of the balls, which as a libero is crazy. You know,
Mm-hmm.
usually they're trying to avoid you. And that was done with a couple different things of doing some show and take stuff and bringing in, four-man serve receive or shifting the serve receive to, put me in the middle of the court, things like that. So definitely, actually, that's the answer is the ability to take more court and have a little bit more control as the libero.
Yeah.
And in the end, I think give my team, a little bit more opportunity for success. And what I mean by that too is if I can pass the ball, that means other people aren't passing the ball, which means they can just go and do their other job, which is hitting, right?
Right.
Not just because I'm touching the ball, it's going to help in that way, but more so just because I'm freeing them up to go and do their job so they can go and hit so that they don't get taken out of a certain, because that's a big
Right.
part of the college or international game is people taking you out of a certain hit or, they serve you, you're on the ground. Now they don't have to worry about you. So if I can put myself in a spot like that or just extend myself to take more court, then um, that's the goal accomplished. And I think this past season was a really good look into that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. And the final question, the technical question is you have a few bad plays. How do you
Yeah.
reset? What's your sort of, when Eric was on, Eric talked about he just breathes and wiggles his toes and he just sort of reset.
That's funny. Yeah. Uh, Probably one of my favorite questions. I think this is the name of the game. For me, it's next ball.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't even know if I think about it at this point. I think I've trained my brain to just move on to the next ball. It's definitely a learned thing. It's something that you have to put the work into doing. And with that, you're flooding your mind with positive feedback. You're not hanging on the last play, but how are you not hanging on the last play? You're talking to your teammates. You're talking to yourself positively. You're thinking about the next play. You're not actually letting yourself stay in that play. So for me, that's it. Taking a breath obviously helps. Maybe kind of just walking off the court a little bit, but um, that would be after bringing it in.
Right.
I'm huge on team huddle and holding it and making eye contact, breathe together, whatever it may be, um, which I think is a great thing for the team to reset. And then
Mm-hmm.
individually, it's definitely, back to my spot, next ball. Sometimes it's even like, I'm going to pass this ball or I'm going to pass this ball perfect and kind of just flooding yourself with that mentality. And I kind of got a couple guys on our team doing that same thing of like,
Nice.
I'm going to pass it. I'm going to pass it. And, putting yourself in that mindset rather than like, I don't want the ball to come to me type of
Right.
thing.
Yeah. All right. And now, today's athlete is, it's, you need to focus on the health of your body, but also your mind. What do you do to sort of keep a mental, keep your sanity?
Yeah, I love this question as well. For me, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, is just the overall consistency. I think some people can take themselves on a roller coaster, and obviously sometimes it's easier said than done. But uh, to me, it's just like keeping yourself here, not only in volleyball, but just in life. Having good people around you, having friends, family, God, religion, if you're into that. Whatever you can have to cling to, you know, um, but not also like solely rely on. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, the name of the game is balance and consistency again. And for me, I feel like I've been in a place where I have those things around me, and it's just like it can just flow like that if you put yourself in that position and not throwing yourself in 100 different ways.
Yeah.
So I think there is a lot of that comes into play. You could even add, eating healthy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lifestyle thing for me, and that's kind of how I think about it. Is what are you feeding yourself, literally, but also not literally.
Right.
What's going into your body? What's going into your mind?
Yeah.
What people are around you? All of that.
Right. Yeah.
You know. What are you doing outside of volleyball?
The influences and things like
Yeah,
that.
the
Yeah.
influences and You know, are you getting even little things? Are you getting enough sun? Are you doing other things that you love? Like we
Right.
talked about entrepreneurship stuff. Like I love doing that.
Yep.
Super fun. Are you getting enough of that, but also still staying focused? And it's just like one big
Yeah, it's a balancing act.
balance act. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ah, nice. And now, we talked a little about it earlier, with the national team. You walk in there, there's so many guys with so many years of experience, whether it's like TJ or Micah and Eric, what have you picked up anything from them, any tips or anything that you can like that stick out for you? Like, okay, that's, just being around them or just watching, guys
Yeah,
like Eric go through his
for
routines.
sure. I would say just like the very simple answer is how simple they can be and uh how good those little touches are. For example, out of system ball or
Yeah.
a free ball, um, even a serve that is ripped, and it's the ability to control that and keep it up. That to me is the biggest difference in that next step in that uh, again shift from college to national team, as well as just their competitiveness. And it's really cool to see that they've been doing it for so long too.
Yeah.
And just whether you're talking to them about that or not, is just the fact that they've been there doing it for so long. And you know
And they're still
I
doing
can
it.
be doing the same thing, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. Speaking of competitiveness, when Micah was on, he seemed very humble, just very cool character. Saw him when we went up to Ottawa. We saw him play. There was a couple of moments during the game that he got feisty.
Yep.
It was nice to see that sort of like
I love it, and
lion
I
come out.
exactly. I love when this is kind of like talked about because he is the nicest and super humble, great guy, which doesn't mean you can't be feisty and competitive on the court, right?
Right? Yeah.
I mean it's not often, but maybe often mistaken, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is people are competing. You're in a game, and you
Yeah.
can have all of that in a game. You can be humble, you can everything, but you also have to be competitive and
Right.
have a little,
Yeah.
you know, fire under you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
So now here's a fun one. So I ask this of everybody who comes on now. Eric and Taylor had this thing going on. What's the toughest position? What's the most demanding position in volleyball? So now I
Uh,
get to get your take on it.
Here's my take. We're gonna go with libero as the toughest position, and I'm gonna go back to exactly what I said earlier: is you don't have as many outs, you don't have as many things that you can do. I know the other side of the argument might phrase it, you don't have to do as many things, but to me, I think that makes it tougher
Mm-hmm.
because of the mental aspect, because of that box that you're kind of trapped into of you have a bad pass, exactly like I said earlier. You have a bad pass, you can't go and hit a ball. You can't
Yeah.
even go back to the service line and control your own aspect of the game. And maybe middles could make a little bit of an argument for that, but I think as a libero, the fact that you don't have any, how do I phrase this? Any effect before, right? You don't have any,
Right.
what would be the word? Like you can't control what's coming before, right? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And not that other positions don't have that as well. I just think that makes it really tough. And um, another question would be, what's the hardest skill? And a lot of people would say serve receive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, someone's back there ripping and 80 miles per hour
Yeah.
sometimes, and you have to receive that ball. And a lot of the times it's expected to be perfect or at least good.
Yeah.
Um, so if the hardest skill is serve receive, someone's job that is one of two things and maybe a couple others,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's libero.
There we go. And speaking of that, when you get somebody who can drop a heater on you like that,
Yeah.
do you just got to commit? How do you get? You have a fraction of a second to be
Yeah.
in that right spot.
It's definitely a trained thing, something I was even working on this past year of just you just have to go.
Yeah.
Um, then you factor in is the ball in or out? So it's like you're going, but then the ball's out and you got to get out of the way of the ball, right? So it's tough. I guess that's just that next level, that next step of seeing those serves and it not being foreign to you.
Yeah.
Um, but that probably is where just everything comes together of
Yeah.
technique and habits created of you're literally just going and reacting. You're not any time to think about, okay, I got to get my arms here or anything.
Right. Yeah.
At that point, it's more so the prep and what position you can put yourself in to begin with, I think.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. So some of the fun things we talked about earlier, your cards, your trading cards,
Yeah.
what are those and how can people, get them?
Yeah, so I got a little bit on that end. I created my personal brand website. It's masonbriggsbrand.com. Um, and on there I have a store and then also a little place for my clinics and opportunities and offerings, I guess you could say. Um, but in the store I have these trading cards. Some of them are available. So this one, for example, I did for a clinic. So they're basically exclusive. So you only get that card if you're at that clinic.
Nice.
Try to create a little bit, exclusive
Yeah.
aspect to it and that actual trading card aspect of it, which I've heard is working a little bit here and there.
Oh,
So
nice.
someone asked me, oh, like, oh, I really want that card. I wasn't there. I said, I know a couple people that have it, and I think they worked something out. Um, the goal with the trading cards really was a way to grow the game. I always
Hmm.
say it, for example, you maybe were into baseball cards growing up, and even the replica jersey example is there's these things for other sports, but to me, they're not available for volleyball.
Yeah.
And if we really want to grow the game, I have a big belief that we have to start with things like this.
Yep.
We can grow the game on a bigger level with all of this, the events, the social media, all of that. But to me, it has to be somewhat of a grassroots uh, trading cards, merch,
Right.
interaction with the fans and players. So that's why I created it. And people ask me, do you have replica jerseys? Or do you have jerseys? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to create a replica. Um, and people, for the trading cards aspect, people would ask me to sign their hoodies, their shoes, their arms. And it was like, okay, there's got to be something. And it just dawned on me after, I think it was after last season. And I was signing someone's ticket. And I was like, oh, that's cool because they keep it and it's like their experience.
Right.
But like, what about a trading card?
Yeah.
Like any other sport, right? And so that's what I did. And the goal is actually to create the cards for more athletes and also continue to give the power to the athletes.
Yeah.
Like, maybe some things that come in and it's like, oh, yeah, we'll do this and you get 1% of it.
Right. But it's
Um,
something at least. And it's
it,
now
it,
there's
exactly.
something like other teammates could have and just you
Yep.
set up the program and they can just sort of, opt in and
100%. Yep.
yeah.
That's the eventual goal. And start it with myself. And hopefully we have a couple other people or groups that are going to get on board and
Excellent.
hopefully create this thing and this buzz around the sport
Yeah.
and give people at least an opportunity to have that connection or
Yeah.
that type of connection with the sport.
Excellent. All right. And any sponsors you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, ready right here. Ready Nutrition. There's the co-partners in it are Giannis and Aaron Donald.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, it's super cool. Pretty cool story. They reached out to me a year or so ago, and then they actually switched gears and did kind of the community outreach course, which was really cool to see from afar. And they killed it that past year with all of that. They circled back this year and they said, hey, we've been following you and we still want to work something out together. And I was like, well, I've been following you. And I'm very specific when it comes to partnerships. And
Yep.
I've always been a loyal person. I'm more into the partnership rather than the one-off thing. But um, it's more so about something that I align with and feel is right. And I told them, I said, ready always felt right for me. And I actually held out on some other things, in hopes of this becoming something.
Nice.
And I was stoked that they reached back out. And now, yeah, it's full sponsorship and we work together. And I just played in, for example, just played in a grass volleyball tournament and they sponsored our team to play and we had t-shirts and everything. It was pretty cool.
Excellent.
Um, And they have, I guess, to give a little background on the product, they have sports drinks, they have protein water, which is interesting. A lot of people haven't heard of that. I didn't hear about it
Yeah.
until them. So protein water that also has like electrolytes. I'll go back to the sports drink a little bit. It's electrolyte, based
Hmm.
uh, hydration drink, and a bunch of good flavors. My favorite is their light version. That's they have a lemonade, they have a classic lemonade, they have a watermelon lemonade, and a mango lemonade. And all three of those are unreal. Um,
And now,
and
is it a
I wish I could
drink or
pass
is it
them
a
to this.
powder you
No, it's a
buy?
drink.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
drink. This is just a sports bottle that
Yep.
I use, which is funny. They actually have their it says our story on the back, which is another thing I love about them is some similar things that we talked about at Long Beach a lot, just with our team is, attitude, effort, energy, the things that you can control. And when I found out and learned more about their brand and what they were about and who was working with them, it was like a no-brainer to me. And to me, that's the ultimate goal and dream is, a sports drink sponsor, and someone that is going to be with you
Yep.
as you continue to grow. And so I'm super excited about this partnership. Not even a sponsorship, really. To me, is just a partnership, and
Yep.
it truly is. It's pretty cool. I guess to finish on the product type of thing, they have the sports drink, the protein water. They have protein powder. They have these snacks, which are pretty interesting. It's like these puffs, protein puffs.
Oh, okay.
They're surprisingly really good. I was a little skeptical. Honestly, they sent them to me and I was like, I didn't like have the need to open them yet.
Yeah.
When I did, I was like, oh, these are awesome. My favorite are the barbecue, which is interesting. Back to the barbecue
Yep.
thing.
There you go. That
Um,
southernness.
yeah, and then they have protein bars. So that's I think their top seller right now. They're in Walmart with protein
Oh,
bars.
wow.
And I know they were up there in the top five or something for their protein bars, and they're killing it there. And I mean, yeah, shout out to them and what they're doing, and hopefully we'll be together for a while.
Excellent. All right. And we'll work on getting you a sneaker brand too, a shoe
Yes,
brand.
we'll get the shoe brand. Yeah, I have some ideas and some goals with that. I just need it to, work out the right
Yep.
way. So if anyone knows any connection to some shoe companies, we'll talk.
All right, there we go. And now, away from volleyball and your businesses, what do you
Yep.
like to do? You've got a girlfriend that you guys both like Luke Combs. What are some of the
Yep.
things you enjoy away from the court?
Yeah. What what I love is just quality time of even if it's like, oh, what are you doing today? Just like literally just hanging out.
Yeah,
I always describe myself as like a natural fun type of guy. Um, I don't drink, I don't party, I don't do any of that, but I love to have a good time and still hang out with friends and like what I mean by natural fun. I don't know, cards, games, we played this game for a while called like running charades where you're running back and forth, or if you've ever played like fishbowl, like stuff like that. I love stuff like that.
yeah,
Um, Also like outdoor activities or cornhole, pickleball, other sports. Um, but yeah, exactly what you said, going on a picnic with the
yeah,
girlfriend, um, you know, going with the friends
yeah. Nice.
to, to anything. And so for me, I've had that privilege of just coming home to those people and or at least down the street from those people. Uh, and then also being close to the family that's
That's huge.
back home. So that's huge. Definitely a big family guy and love just the little opportunities, but also uh, thrive in the chaos and the energy as
Yeah,
well. There's just a lot going on. It's fun as well.
nice. Now, what do you think you're going to miss most when fall comes?
Oh man. I would say like the obvious answers are, my girlfriend,
Yes.
family, um, all of that. The home, but also home of Long Beach, I think. And there's a lot that I'm realizing I'll miss and that I have already realized.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm just glad I don't have to say the weather because I'm going to Nice where the weather will be,
Right.
at least fairly
It's not
similar.
Poland weather.
Exactly. And it's not super dark and
Right.
cold and not like I won't ever see the sun. So
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna miss, in terms of volleyball in Long Beach and Long Beach Nation. The fans and that support was unreal. And the amount of people that reached out locally, and all of our supporters and the coaches and the team, all of that. Um, Location, I'm obviously gonna miss this location, this weather. I love it, and year round too. And then just the how comfortable everything is here. And again, it doesn't scare me. Like I know it'll be fine, but it obviously when
It's
you've
the
been somewhere
unknown.
for five, yeah, and you've been somewhere for 5 years, it's a big change.
Yep.
I'm like a fairly curious person, I guess you could say, um, or like adventurous, curious and adventurous. So I know I'll have a lot of fun in that aspect, but I'm leaving something behind that's
Yep.
been amazing the past, you know, 5 years. And I finished I wrote like on Instagram, and I finished same thing. My speech at our banquet was, if I didn't have to leave Long Beach, I never would. And
Yep.
so I guess that kind of sums it up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the nice thing you'll be able to do is you'll be able to visit so many different countries. It'll be so
Yes.
easy. So yeah,
I'm
you
so
will have
excited
fun.
about that. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, well, hey, Mason, thank you so much for doing this pod. I really appreciate it. It was wonderful to get to know you and capture your journey and your story. But before you go, like with past guests, I like, who do you have in your circle of volleyball players, coaches, you think would have a good story to come on and share?
Oh, so kind of like passing on.
Who are
Yeah.
you passing the baton on to?
Yeah, that's a good one. There's so many people that I mean, obviously in a respect aspect, but just like that I think would be fun. And wow, I'm definitely gonna let you know after and give you
Okay.
some ideas, because I feel like there's probably some people that have pretty cool stories. A couple that like came to my mind right away were maybe on Long Beach, at least, or maybe some like the international guys that
Yep.
have a story there. Um, or I love a good like Eric Beebe was our other setter on our team, and he, for example, has a really cool story in my mind of going to OCC, then I believe Concordia, then OCC, and then Long Beach type of thing. Like
Yeah.
cool stories like that. And like always had a lot of respect for him and those types of stories. Or like a Sotos on our team where it's or Simon where you're kind of the opposite of what we have been talking about the whole time. They're in another country here playing.
Yep.
What's that like? I think that's cool for the fans and for people to understand and realize as well.
Okay. Well, hey, thank you again. And, best of luck to you next season. And,
Thank you.
good luck down in the DR.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Nice chatting.